Hello, everyone. We're back. It's been a
Ah,
little bit. I can't even remember, maybe a little bit over a month since we've sat and recorded and dived in,
even longer. Yeah, I don't
maybe
know.
even longer. Yeah. So, this week we are on Gene Key 38, the Gate of the Fighter, which both Hannah and I both have defined. And I feel as if we both really relate in our own individual ways. And as always, the journey of the Gene Keys has so many synchronicities. Well, I'll speak for myself for where I'm at in my life right now and just kind of like what's been going on. Um, how are you?
Yeah, all right. I feel like, yeah, so much has happened since we last recorded. We actually caught up in person
Yes.
maybe 3 weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
probably about 3 weeks ago. And so, yeah, we've seen each other more recently, but it's been a long time since we recorded and just feels like I don't know, it just feels like a lot of shifting, a lot of changing. I had a birthday, so
Yeah.
that for me brought up a lot of things. It's been a very reflective time. I feel like I've been really setting new intentions. I always, I don't know if you get the same around birthdays, but I always kind of reassess everything. And I really take it as an opportunity to take stock and just look at my life and look at what I want and what is serving me and what's not. And so that's where I've been at. And I think I told you before we got on, I've had a bit of pain, a bit of like tension and tightness in my neck, which I've had in the past a lot, but it's kind of been flaring up recently. And yeah, I think it's all related to what's going on. So I'd
Yeah.
love to hear what's been going on for you and where you're at as well.
Well, since I last saw you a few weeks ago, I feel like I've also been in this midst of change like coming, and I've kind of been anticipating that now for a while. I don't think I've shared yet on the podcast publicly that I'm moving back to Florida. Have I?
I don't know if you have.
I don't think I have. Um, so yeah, definitely shift, change. It's getting cooler here where we're at. So going into another season, into a new season, so similar to you. And I sense that like especially today actually is the new moon, the solar eclipse new moon. So a big day, and I feel like a big day for us having come back to our recording and our podcast and our connection. I was reading this article just before we started, actually, that is, I think it's who is it? Rising Woman, their
Mhm.
their newsletter around the energy of this time. And it talks a lot about commitments and reevaluating your commitments, um, looking at the cycles in your life that started early 2023, I believe, which early 2023, that was kind of like around the time that I moved here, actually, right? 20, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like you moved around like early days of this podcast. I feel like we started this podcast maybe around this time 2 years ago, which is kind of crazy because it has been longer than a year.
We started like a little bit after the new year. We
Oh,
started
did we?
sometime in
Okay.
January. So it was
Oh,
still
okay.
fairly new. We had started
Right,
getting kind of on a rhythm in the beginning
right.
of the year. So, but it did
But
feel like we were in a groove and then changed.
yeah, well, I feel like we'd started and then you moved not long after.
Yeah.
And so it's almost been like this big, full circle, but so much has changed.
Oh my gosh, a huge full circle and change. And anyway, so yeah, I feel as if like right now a lot of what I'm feeling for myself and even for like a lot of my close friends is like massive change, massive shifts, whether it's in the area of um like their romantic relationships, their friendships, honestly really a lot around relationships right now, which I think is a big theme in this new moon today.
Yeah, well, it's a Libra new moon, which is I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, solar eclipse in Libra. So
yeah.
so much about relationships, about harmony, balance. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. And it's interesting because for me, I do sort of feel this like being a 2/4, we've talked a lot about our profiles because I think that they come up a lot in our like day-to-day life and how we experience our inner and outer world. And for me, the 4 being the second number and a lot about like my outer life, right? Relationships are really important to me. And one of the main things that I've actually have recognized in the move here, right? Like I've always wanted to try something new. I wanted to get out of Florida. Um, and I got the chance to do that. And in retrospect now, really realizing it's amazing for me to like have new experiences. And who knows, maybe I'll have another one where I'm kind of further away from my friends and family. But that was one of the biggest things that I realized is that, it's been a wonderful experience. And yeah, I still really like need my tribe around me.
Yeah.
Like in physical proximity is really, really important for my own like overall well-being.
Mm.
So yeah, it's nice. I'm good. I'm like really excited about it and perceive a lot more change, but it feels super aligned and supportive and just exciting.
Mm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I think I've also been reassessing my relationships a lot, and I'm a 2/5, so it's a different kind of experience that I have relating to others. And, you know, my close relationships are really important to me, but I've shared with you before, I feel like I have a really small circle. And I think that that was one of the things I was reflecting on in around my birthday is like, who are my people, and realizing that I actually don't really have, there's still relationships in my life that feel superficial. And there's a lot of sadness there. There's a lot of sadness with feeling like, you know there's perhaps some of the relationships in my life aren't really real, and feeling like quite alone in that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think a big thing for me at the moment is my relationship with myself. And I think that that is, I have so much individual energy in my chart. And it's this, and maybe it's a manifestor thing as well, like this feeling like I don't need other people. I'm okay. I'm good on my own. But then also like the human desire to feel accepted and to feel loved and to feel like you have support and people. And I think I'm more and more really leaning into knowing that I don't need a lot of people in order to live my life and to live authentically. And for me, having a big impact on a more impersonal scale is really important. And like I have that with the work that I do with social media. I feel like I have a community of people, even though they're not in my immediate circle or my tribe. It's like I still have that support from people who I don't perhaps know personally. It's interesting. It's really interesting. And I think there's a lot of programming around like needing to have a lot of friends or needing to
Yeah.
have um, you know, like hold on to relationships just for the sake of you've known them for a long time. Like a lot of my high school friends, I feel like we're just in a completely different place, and our lives have gone in very different directions. And I think there's a lot of sadness there because I feel this pressure to like maintain relationships that almost, like I say, feel
Mm,
superficial to
mm.
an extent. And then it's also okay to, still be friendly with people, but perhaps they're not, the people that I go to for certain things. And, I've had so many conversations with my husband, Alex, about like feeling like I want to have people that I can open up to or close connections that I can have, but it's like really knowing who those people are. And I feel like you are one of those people where I can say anything and I can be myself and I can, you know, feel supported in that way. But there's not a lot of people, and it's just kind of coming to a place of acceptance around that. Like I don't need to have a lot of people. It's just knowing who I can go to for what.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you do you think I was wondering, with this being um the gate of the fighter, and I don't know if that root energy has, well, maybe actually, now that I'm saying it out loud, because I think of the root center sort of as like, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You've seen it, right? And at the bottom there are like the basic needs, um, like food, shelter, water. I surprisingly can't even remember where in this pyramid people are, but I want to say that if they're not, like people are also like, relationships should be are that basic need. What are those basic needs? And so I'm curious to know like how does this energy of um I don't want to say fight, right? I mean, there's a lot around fight here. This what's the shadow? I don't even remember right now.
Struggle, the
Struggle.
shadow.
Yeah. So how does maybe the shadow of not even just the shadow, but the energy of gate 38 kind of influence your relationships? Does it even influence your relationships?
Mm. Um, well, particularly like my intimate relationship with my husband, I notice that I have the tendency to be quite like aggressive or, like I will often pick a fight. I will pick a fight with him. And he doesn't have this, he has a defined route, but I don't think he has this gate defined.
Yeah.
And so he's a lot more passive when it comes to like communication or disagreements and things like that. We don't actually fight a lot as a couple, which is really nice because I have, in previous relationships, I've been in very volatile relationships where there was a lot of fighting and, also growing up, like my parents, would fight a lot. They're divorced now, but they would often try and like hide it and, pretend that everything was okay. But obviously, as a child, you can still pick up on that tension and that, you know, disharmony. And
Yeah.
I think he is someone who's deeply sensitive and deeply, I've got open emotional solar plexus, open sacral, open spleen, like so much openness and sensitivity. um I wonder also if being a Libra sun has something to do with that, like sensitivity and that, being really uncomfortable with disharmony
Mhm.
also impacts me. But yeah, to kind of answer your question, I think that I definitely have this like, I don't like confrontation. I don't like arguments. I don't like fights, but I'm also the one to pick one. So it's kind of a like disharmony within myself as well. There's a bit of a struggle between this like part of me that wants peace,
Mhm.
um, and then the part of me that can really like pick a fight.
Yeah.
What about you?
Um, so I've noticed this most recently when it comes to, because here there's like this, like the gift level of this energy is um
Perseverance.
perseverance, but I was gonna say like like fighting for a deeper purpose and deeper meaning. And I've noticed, and I've known this for a long time. I think that the reason why I do the type of work that I do is because of this. Well, this is one of those energies. Um, Although it's in like the individual circuit, I feel as if like my somehow it's still related to like the service that I give because I was actually just telling my therapist. I don't know why this story feels relevant to share, but I was just telling my therapist this past week that when I was young, can't even really remember, maybe like a little bit older than 7 years old, I watched this movie called Losing Isaiah. Have you ever heard of this movie? So it's this movie about this black little boy who gets left um in the trash, I think, like in a dumpster or something like that. Then he gets, brought to the ER. Ultimately, what happens is the lady, this white lady, ends up adopting this baby, and then the movie is about like the reunion and unification of the family, and if that will work, and all of that. And I just remember that um, when the movie ended, I was hysterical, like crying hysterically. And I just felt like that was the moment I realized I have like this bleeding heart for humanity. And probably also like was feeling my own emotions of, the family dynamics within like my own life. But anyway, I say that because I feel like most recently I've noticed I get very fighty. I don't know another way to say it around sort of like standing up for whether you call it advocating or wanting to empower or wanting, to shake people awake or um all of this. I mean, it's in my own life. Like I do feel it personally. I think that's why sometimes I'm like my biggest critic of how I'm living my life and in what direction I'm going or what I'm doing or like a challenge that comes my way. I'm also a very competitive person. I played sports growing up a lot and even till now I was something happened. I don't need to get into it, but I was at the gym the other day and this lady came and I didn't see her like bag on the machine, but she came and I feel like she came at me like I feel like her energy was like that was mine. I didn't see her bag there. I'm sorry you weren't, there, but I just kind of like felt that energetically. And so I'm over there then on the Stairmaster just like trying to like beat her. I have no idea what she's doing, but my point is like I have this like very competitive energy that I think comes through this channel and wants to like be physically moved out. Um, but I just think back to like a lot of my own personal experiences. I When I feel like something is right, I can't not say something. I can't like I sort of initiated conversations within my household at a young age that I just had to say something about. Like I can't not kind of because ultimately it's impacting me, right? Like that's kind of one of the big things um that I notice is like I I feel like I'm standing for something because it's either impacting me or impacting the whole. Um and yeah, I can sense it and even now kind of similar to you like within my romantic relationship like I'll notice when, not that I'm trying to pick a fight, but when I can like be mad at Travis and it has nothing to do with Travis, right?
Yeah.
It really has a lot to do with me, which came up last night, ironically, but I handled it a little bit more, I would say mature than probably in the past.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of one of the things I had highlighted in this chapter was struggle and resistance allow you to diagnose whether you're fulfilling the true purpose of your life. In that sense, they can be extremely useful. And that really stood out to me because it's kind of like, I suppose, like you say, you know, you're picking a fight with Travis, but it's not actually about Travis.
Yeah.
But it's like if we can take a step back, and I think he even talks about the importance of like taking a pause, taking a breath.
Hmm.
We can kind of recognize like, oh, there's something here that's like that I'm struggling with. There's something
Yeah.
here that's not sitting well with me, and or I'm feeling this lack of purpose, or I'm feeling this like something's not fair, something's not right. And it's like, there's a lot of wisdom there in how we're kind of fighting against life or and it might manifest in our relationships. And, that's where it kind of comes out, but it might not even be about that at all. It's just that we have this like energy of wanting to fight for something.
Hmm.
And sometimes in the shadow frequency, it can, pick an unnecessary fight, but there's so much like compassion there if we can recognize that like there's just something that wants to be uncovered.
Yeah. And
Mm.
I've also, like I was mentioning, sort of have recognized how the gift has shown through for me. And that really is, I think, kind of going back to like really wanting to be of service and,
Mm.
you know, direct like one-on-one contact, or whether that's in a group or but really like wanting to fight for people to have their, I in the best way I could say it, their best life, the most well-being that they could possibly have for themselves. And this past week, actually, I had a really hard moment where, like you were saying, like it might not be about the thing that you think it's about. Um, I was so triggered by a case that was happening within my job, and I felt so many intense emotions, like from deep sadness to like crying about this situation to like anger. This isn't right. Like, I want to like fix the system. I want to like really change some things. And when I got to strip back some of the layers, a lot of it had to do with personal freedom.
Mm.
And that being, and I think that's one of the things that Richard Rudd talks about in this energy, is that when we are kind of operating out of the gift, we're really fighting for values and morals, and not like the details of of things. Does that make sense? Like, am I saying that accurately?
And like the fight for love. And
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
like the freedom
I
is
have to turn off.
fighting for love, like freedom from fear. I think that's even what he says right at the
Yeah.
very end, along the lines of like the fight the fight to be free of fear or something like that.
Yes. And I actually wanted to, because I reread it this week, and then I'm like reflecting on everything that has been going on for me. And it says, where the 38th shadow is always fighting out of fear and usually for survival, the 38th gift fights for love. In our modern world, the only domain for the 38th gift is the battle against the shadow frequency, which is the battle against collective frequency of fear. And I was realizing like that's kind of what I feel um is coming out right now, even with this shift in my career of this position that, I'm gonna start fulfilling soon. This role that I'm about to be, it's completely new and it's not something I've ever done. But I feel again that while this still is an individual circuitry, I think it's because you know what, like it's all kind of coming to me right now. I had to like literally fight for my survival
Mm.
at a younger age. I'm pretty sure I've shared this on the podcast before. I was diagnosed with lupus, 15-ish, 16. Yeah, a little bit after I was 16 years old. And that was a fight. Like when I was slowly getting better and, on all these different medications, and I was in therapy and processing a lot and just kind of like learning how to cope and deal with it all. I kind of realized that I made a stance that I was always going to do everything in my power to make sure that I was happy or at peace, whatever. I don't think I used the word peace then. It was more about like just declaring this as happiness. And I feel like that really was a pivotal moment in like my fight for love for myself. And so it's really um kind of like one of those threads that like pushes me and forces me to fight the fight with the collective of what their peace and their happiness, their well-being, their
Yeah.
freedom, their wholeness, their wellness really looks like for them. Because I mean, that's the world that I envision.
Yeah. And have you made the correlation that 15 years ago, have you made the correlation about how we're like closing out this 15-year cycle astrologically?
You know, I don't think until this very moment right now, as we're speaking, am I recognizing like, I don't even have words for it. Thank you. Like,
Well, yeah, go on. Go ahead.
yeah, no, I mean, so much is sort of like coming through. And I think that happens with you and I, like when we get there, like it's just sort of like a funnel and you can't even stop it from making sense, like stop to make sense of it. It's just all there. But wow, like, I mean, when I think about like the breath work training that I had in the beginning of the year and all that was being brought up was really a lot of it was the beginning of that 15 years ago. Um, and even,
That was like 2009,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah, I was diagnosed in 2010
Mm.
or 2009.
But it started in around then.
It started
Yeah.
in 2009, and I can't remember if I was, but I don't think
Mm.
I was diagnosed until early 2010. But wow, I mean, yeah, and like that's one of a lot of those things is kind of something that I'm like I'm literally been actively in the last months working to just close.
Right. Get
Yeah,
rid of it. Yeah.
yeah. And one of the major themes that comes up with a lot of that stuff is forgiveness.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
I yeah, it's always been a very kind of elusive, difficult topic for me to be with and play with. Um,
Mm.
but one of the biggest gifts in me really moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah.
Woof.
I wrote down some Louise Hay affirmations the other
I,
day, and I'll just share them here for you and for anyone listening. I forgive everyone in my past for all perceived wrongs. I release them with love. And then there's, I'm willing to release all patterns of resentment. And then the other one, which I've been personally sitting with, is I love and approve of myself exactly as I am. But yeah, a big theme of forgiveness has been coming up for me as well.
I've been
And just,
saying I approve of myself every day lately.
yeah,
Yeah. So sweet.
yeah. Yeah. And for me, like that approval, that was something that so I did some journaling this morning for the new moon. And one of the themes that that I am closing off, that I'm intentionally releasing, is this seeking external validation. And, if we can like affirm that
Mhm.
I approve of myself, I don't need that approval from anywhere, anyone, or anything, or anywhere else. Like if I approve of me, like I don't need to look for it outside of me. And so that's been a huge theme for me, is like letting go of that need to seek it out externally. And like I said to you before, like holding on to relationships to kind of validate this, like, oh, I have friends, I have people who like me, I have people who, get me. But it's just not real anymore, in some cases. And so can I lovingly release the need to have those things, to hold on to those things? And then also another theme that's been coming up for me, like I said before as well, is the tension, like holding on to tension. For me, it manifests in physical pain, like
Mhm.
neck pain, headaches, chronic pain. It was for me for a long time. And I really believe that it's coming up again right now, because it's that like final test. Are you
Yeah.
ready to let this go? It's
Yeah.
time to let this go. And if I think back to where I was 15 years ago, that's when I started to develop anxiety, social anxiety. I started to worry about like what people are thinking about me. And I got really self-conscious. I became really self-conscious about talking in public, speaking, which I never had. I was always the most confident young child and adult. I was always the one to put my hand up to be the main role in school plays, be, you know, I used to speak at assembly every week when I was in high school, like presenting. I loved being on stage. I loved talking and like sharing out loud. And then all of a sudden, when I started university, it was in 2009, I started to get social anxiety. And so for me, this is like a full circle kind of moment. Like, yeah, maybe I don't feel as anxious or self conscious as I used to.
Yeah.
Um, but where am I still holding on to that like tension or that worry about what people think about me? And um, yeah,
Mm. Yeah. Good stuff.
good stuff.
I feel like I have received a lot of clarity in our conversation today. Like
Mm,
overwhelmingly just I feel like overwhelmingly secure, um,
mm,
which is a very like beautiful um I want to say like I feel very fortunate, like very appreciative of this feeling because I
mm,
too, you know, have had like physical manifestations recently with I've been having, as you probably just saw if you're watching YouTube, but um I've had a little bit of a cough, I've had some congestion and stuff, and my immune system has been a big part of, obviously lupus, and a big
yeah.
part of like my story in the last 15 years. And right now, I sort of feel like I'm in a place where I'm trusting that my body is healing and I'm
Mm,
not feeling like freaked out about it. I'm not sort of like, fixated on how will it, when or how it's going to go away. I'm really just like trusting that my body is doing something in this like sort of cyclical kind of way of kind of closing, and then not to say that I'm never going to have another cold or, congestion or anything like that. But when I think about all of the energies that are happening right now with the new moon, with it being in Libra, the relationships, this where we're at with this gene key journey and like the 38th and our conversation today, a lot of what happens with autoimmune issues, I do believe is like emotional turmoil and discomfort and just struggle. I felt like I was really sort of struggling, like I was fighting a fight that was not my fight. And then boom, like I'm sick, right? And so I'm just, like I said, so grateful for this conversation and for the journey of the gene keys, because I feel like in today, I've really got just so much, like I said, clarity and sort of just a different perspective um, on where I'm at today and how to move forward.
mm.
And uh, thank you.
Yeah, me too. And it's like time to start writing a new story. Like that
Mhm.
chapter's closed. It's time to write a new belief system, a new, perspective, a new, and what's coming to me is just like, but loving, like, but fully forgiving and
Yeah.
releasing the previous chapter with so much love and compassion, and like seeing that it was a necessary part of the
Mhm.
journey. um and I've just got chills because it's like we can't release something and fully forgive it and let it go if we're still holding on to some sort of resentment there. And so like we have to release it with love and accept it, in order to fully be able to move forward. And then the last thing that like is coming to me as well is just this like perseverance spirit
Mm.
of, warrior of the light, of fighting for something bigger than us, and something like so meaningful and fulfilling that like maybe we can't even see what that is yet, but we know it's there. Like
Yeah.
hold on to that hope. Hold on to that hope. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Mm.
Oh, thank you, Hannah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, let us know what you think. We're happy to be back. I'm happy to be back. We'll keep it grooving until another life switch, shift, change comes our way. But thank you guys. We really appreciate you listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
See you next time. Bye.